Речник антитерористичної операції Леоніда Матюхіна. Він буде у нас на скайп-зв'язку. І також я до слова зараз запрошую Владислава Селезньова. Він є виконуючим обов'язки речника Генерального штабу України. Владислава, прошу.
Good morning, colleagues. This is the last briefing of this year. I would like to congratulate you with the forthcoming holidays. The President of Ukraine, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, during staying at Yavorivsky field in Lvivsky region, gave to the servicemen of the armed forces, which are located in the western region, about 100 units of the military equipment and weaponry, which are manufactured or restored by the Ukrainian companies in the International Center of Security of the Academy of Armed Forces, named after Hetman Petro Sagaidatny. The President granted the certificates for manufacturing and for the manufactured and restored equipment and weaponry. Among such equipment, there were tanks, howitzers, Pion, Kras, armored vehicles, Mi-8 and Mi-2 helicopters, sanitary vehicles, and also the rifles fort. Also, the head of the state transferred the certificates for the stations of counter-battery combat made by the U.S. The president also granted certificate for two restored helicopters Mi-8, which were taken out of the balance of the State Department of Affairs and transferred to the Ministry of Defense for the Army. During the month, these helicopters were renewed and were taken for servicing by the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In Yavorivsky, Harrison, the head of the state, granted the documents and keys from apartments to the servicemen and the members of their family. 59 families received apartments in new house. Out of those who received this housing, there are families of two officers of the Armed Forces of Ukraine who were killed during the exercising combat tasks. In total, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine built and purchased 455 new apartments. Out of them, 405 are in Lviv, Mykolaiv, Rivne, Kostopil of Rivne district, Belgorod-Dnestrovsky of Odessa region, Yavorevo of Lviv region, Vinogradovo of Transcarpathian region, Kotovsk of Odessa region, Berezhano of Ternopil region, Ozerno of Zhytomyr region, and Gara of Borispil district of Kyiv region. 50 more apartments the Ministry of Defense purchased according to the previously executed investment agreements in Chernigiv, Belgorod, Dnestrovsky, and Kyiv. In accordance with the state budget for 2015, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine will receive 40.2 billion hryvnias. This is almost 13 billion hryvnias more than in 2014. Besides, there are state guarantees planned for the amount of 4.4 billion hryvnias, which will be issued in accordance with the resolution of the government of Ukraine. This way, in 2015, the budget of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine may be 44.6 billion hryvnias. Out of them, 2.8 billion hryvnias are planned to be used to finance the supplies for purchase of supplies of the military, 2.3 billion for purchasing the fuel, 1.5 billion hryvnias for the food for the military, 0.4 billion hryvnias for capital repairs and maintenance of the barracks, 1.1 billion hryvnias for medical and transportation support, 18.3 billion hryvnias to pay the monetary subsistence level, 5.2 billion hryvnias to finance state order, 3.8 billion hryvnias for repairing the weaponry, 1 billion hryvnias for construction of housing, 14 billion hryvnias, or 31.6% of the defense budget of 2015 will be used to develop armaments. To compare, in 2014 that was 3.9 billion hryvnias. The necessity to increase these expenditures is connected to the current military political situation around Ukraine and also because the the armaments and equipment of the armed forces of Ukraine is in many cases older than 30 years. During 2014, the armed forces of Ukraine received the modernized aircrafts, helicopters, tanks, Bulat, armored personnel carriers, BTR-4E, transporters, the sets of the parachute systems, anti-tank missile systems, navigation equipment, collimator sights, modern small arms and ammunition of domestic and foreign manufacture. The Ministry of Defense of Ukraine executed the contracts for purchasing drones, radio location stations of counter-battery combat, radio locators, the devices of night vision, and radio reconnaissance equipment. Besides, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine initiated the amendments to the regulatory basis of the armed forces of Ukraine. This allows to shorten the time frame for supplies of the military equipment and armaments. The domestic companies of the defense sector are gradually replacing the spare parts made by Russian Federation by spare parts and materials of domestic and foreign make. The Mykolaiivsky armored plant started manufacturing the new BRDM 2000. This is the vehicle that has additional armor and up-to-date communication equipment. The new Khazar machine is not the only design of Mykolaiivsky plant. There is another vehicle which is called St. Nicholas. Several of such armored ambulances are already used in the zone of ATO. For additional protection, the plant puts the special grids on armored personnel carriers.
Збройні сили України.
The citizens of Ukraine, the local authorities, and the entrepreneurs continue to support the armed forces of Ukraine. Yesterday, in Dnipropetrovsk Military Hospital, the new surgery department was opened. The companies, citizens, volunteers, private companies, and NGOs provided materials to buy the modern medical equipment. And the new department is for 40 beds. There will be surgeries made there with very complicated dental diseases. In Dnipropetrovsk Military Hospital, there were more than 3,500 servicemen treated, the participants of anti-terrorist operation. The surgical teams of the hospital had more than 2,500 surgeries. Ukrainian servicemen continue to provide assistance to local population on the territories liberated from combatants. In the Baltsovo of Donetsk region, the servicemen of the armed forces of Ukraine gave 1 ton of food products to the collective of the ambulance service. Besides that, Ukrainian servicemen gave more than 50 sweet packages to the children of the workers of the Baltsevska Central City Hospital. The servicemen of Armed Forces of Ukraine help the population in the southern regions of Ukraine to clean the roads from the snow. In Mykolaiv, the military unit gave the special machine, special vehicle to clean the roads from the snow. In Odessa region, the operational group started 24 hours duty. There are 6 detachments of the special vehicles which are ready to come to assistance to local population. The military and navy established interaction with the main department of the state's emergency service in Odessa and Mykolaiv regions. At the section of the highway Odessa-Mayaki, the Special Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine gave assistance to 21 vehicles and the bus with the passengers. The special equipment pulled out from the snow the bus where there were children near Odessa, near Belgorod-Dnistrovsky. The 15 units of military equipment were sent to help the citizens. Within 2 hours, dozens of cars were taken out of the snow, and they also delivered warm food and warm clothes to citizens there. With the help of the special equipment, the mobile groups unblocked the roads to the settlements Manasha, Karolina, Bugas, and Roxolana. Now the military engineers continue to clean the roads. They are paying special attention to the highways, bridges, and other structures. These were the short that was the short information of the activity of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. Now I would like to give the floor to Leonid Matyukhin, who will tell you about what's happening in the zone of anti-terrorist operation. Good morning. Can you hear us well? So please tell us about the situation in ATO zone. During the last night, the situation in the ATO zone hasn't been changed significantly. The militants continued the shellings and provocations, shelling from the small arms and grenade launchers. The bandits 11 times started firing at the positions of our servicemen. The most difficult situation was at the Donetsk direction. In the night, the illegal armed groups twice were shelling at Marinka. 2 times the terrorists started provocative firing at Donetsk airport and in the settlements Pisky and Granitne. It was also not quiet in other sections. The bandits were shelling Proletarska mine in Luganshina and the outskirts of Debaltseve and Redkadub. After 7 p.m., we registered the air reconnaissance using the drone near Vinogradna. Near Mariupol, all the checkpoints besides Gnutova are closed. This is done temporarily to make impossible for terrorist groups to come to our territory, and this is done to ensure the security for our citizens. The Ukrainian military continue to maintain and strengthen their positions and ensure the security of the state. Besides, the engineers of the armed forces of Ukraine put dozens of the special mines along the coastal line. The Ukrainian servicemen were going into the sea with the storm of 24 degrees. That is all. Can we ask you some clarification question? Yesterday you said all the checkpoints around Mariupol were closed, but one with the exception of one. What's happening now? Now all these checkpoints are closed, with the exception of the checkpoint Gnutovo. This is done to have a more efficient work and to avoid the situation when terrorists get to our territory. There are no fighting there, but that's done to provide to ensure the security for the citizens so that there are fewer acts of terrorists. When at such a small section there are so many checkpoints, it's easier for all different people to get on the territory. And another question about Peski. What is the situation there now? Now, we are clarifying the information. In the morning there was information that there were some shellings there, but we are clarifying that. But yesterday night, everywhere on the internet, they were saying that there's some fighting going on there. But according to the information of the commanders of the units which are there, there were some shellings from the some shelling, but no battles like it was written in the internet. Then one more question. Are you getting ready to celebrate the holidays? Frankly speaking, no one is really enjoying the situation because there are shellings and our servicemen are at the positions, especially because it's much colder now. It's not very warm, but in general, I believe that in the evening we will feel at least somehow some holiday, because we all hope that next year will not be like this one. It will be much better. It is very important for all people to have peace. Thank you from all the journalists, from myself, from the whole team of the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center. We would like to congratulate you with the holidays. We wish to really have peace as soon as possible so that all the guys come back home. We love you, and we will contact you next year. Thank you. Our next press briefing will be at 12:30. Thank you.